Attention, please be advised that viewer discretion is strongly recommended. All parties are presumed innocent until proven guilty. Listen at your own discretion. Imagine a world where a music titan, a cultural icon, allegedly saw himself as the Michael Jordan of substance-fueled illicit gatherings. It sounds like a twisted fantasy, but this very claim has surfaced in the explosive trial of Sean Diddy Combs, pulling back the curtain on a life far removed from the glittering image he projected. As disturbing details emerge from the courtroom, the legacy of one of music's biggest names hangs precariously in the balance. The most bizarre and unsettling of these revelations, a detail that sent ripples through observers of the trial, came directly from Combs' ex-girlfriend, testifying bravely under the pseudonym Jane. She painted a surreal picture, alleging that Combs didn't just orchestrate these deeply troubling encounters, he reportedly cast him like some kind of perverse championship sports drama. According to Jane's sworn testimony, Combs elevated himself to the status of Jordan, Michael Jordan, the legendary figure synonymous with ultimate skill and dominance, within the context of these alleged illicit gatherings. In this disturbing reported hierarchy, Jane herself was labeled Kobe Bryant, another icon, but here, a key player supposedly compelled to perform in his grotesque game. And a male escort frequently hired for these nights was chillingly designated Shaquille O'Neal, completing this twisted all-star team. This wasn't about athletic prowess or championship rings. Jane testified with palpable distress that this strange framing was all about Combs' alleged voyeuristic gratification, often, she claimed, at her forced and degrading expense. The sheer audacity of such a comparison, juxtaposing celebrated athletes with acts she described as coercive, speaks volumes about the alleged mindset at play. It suggests a world where people were not individuals with autonomy, but rather pawns or players in a game orchestrated for one man's pleasure. But this strange glimpse into Combs' reported self-perception, shared on the 24th day of his harrowing trial, was just the tip of the iceberg, a single shocking detail in a case exposing what prosecutors are painstakingly trying to prove is a calculated pattern of control and profound abuse. Beyond the disturbing athletic comparisons, the trial digs into far more sinister territory. At the very heart of this high-profile legal battle are incredibly serious federal charges: trafficking for sexual exploitation and racketeering conspiracy. Jane has spent 4 agonizing days on the stand, her voice at times trembling as she walked the jury through a life she claims was funded by Combs, but ultimately centered on his insatiable and often degrading sexual appetites. Her central accusation is stark and horrifying. She alleges she was systematically pressured, manipulated, and ultimately forced into participating in demeaning sexual encounters with male prostitutes, all orchestrated for Combs' viewing pleasure. Prosecutors are building a case arguing that the bad boy founder, a man of immense wealth and global influence, allegedly leveraged these very assets to trap and exploit women like Jane. They contend he then used his considerable resources and even the threat of violence to ensure their silence and meticulously protect his carefully crafted public reputation. Of course, Combs himself has entered a plea of not guilty to all charges. He vehemently denies ever coercing anyone into sexual acts, setting the stage for an intense courtroom showdown where every piece of testimony, every shred of evidence is fiercely contested. As prosecutors began laying out the architecture of their case, brick by painful brick, Combs' defense team prepared to launch a vigorous and multi-pronged effort, aiming to dismantle Jane's credibility and cast doubt on the very foundations of her story. As Jane laid out her harrowing story, detailing alleged coercion and control, Combs' defense team, led by the formidable Tenny Giragos, launched a formidable counteroffensive, aiming to chip away at the prosecution's narrative. Their strategy appeared clear and calculated, to meticulously pick apart Jane's claims of trauma and force by confronting her with her own words and actions from the past. The courtroom was shown messages Jane had sent to Combs during their relationship, text that, on the surface, painted a picture of intimacy, desire, and even shared adventurousness. "I wish you were here," one message read, displayed for the jury to consider. "We can play our videos on TV and lock each other in the room all day. I never cut so hard like that in my life." The defense wielded these communications like a shield, suggesting that Jane was not a reluctant victim, but an active, even enthusiastic participant in Combs' world. Furthermore, they hammered on the lavish gifts Combs bestowed upon her, designer handbags and other luxury items. The implication was clear. How could such generosity and apparent affection coexist with the dark portrait of coercion Jane was now presenting? When Giragos pressed Jane about Combs giving another girlfriend a Chanel handbag, aiming to highlight that Jane too benefited from this lifestyle, the defense sought to undercut her narrative of a victim trapped in a nightmarish existence, suggesting instead a transactional relationship where pleasure and perks were willingly exchanged. But Jane's responses on the stand painted a picture of someone deeply scarred, not easily silent. But Jane was far from a passive or easily intimidated witness. Under the defense's intense and often grueling scrutiny, her responses in court were frequently sharp, tinged with a palpable rawness and, at times, openly defiant, cutting through the legalistic parrying. The cross-examination took on an even sharper tone as defense attorney Terry Garagos relentlessly questioned Jane, attempting to portray her as someone who embraced the lifestyle Combs provided. However, when Garagos pushed Jane about another luxury item, a Bottega Veneta handbag, perhaps trying to further establish a pattern of willing acceptance of gifts, Jane shot back with a pointed remark, "I'm sure you have one." A comment that hinted at the disconnect between the attorney's questioning and her lived experience. The defense attorney then pressed further, asking directly, "How much do Bottega bags run?" Jane's reply was not about the price of a handbag. It was a gut punch, a moment of raw, unfiltered anguish that likely resonated deeply within the courtroom and beyond. "How much does my body cost?" This explosive retort seemed to encapsulate the profound pain, the deep sense of violation, and the indignation underlying her testimony. It directly challenged the defense's attempts to frame her experiences as transactional or consensual, reframing the narrative around the immeasurable cost of her alleged suffering. Her exchanges with Garagos, particularly this searing question, highlighted the chasm between the defense's portrayal of a willing participant enjoying a lavish lifestyle and Jane's unwavering insistence that she was a victim, stating with chilling clarity during another exchange, "No, I only got trauma." And what happened next would reveal even more about the complexities of this alleged dynamic.
Beyond the dramatic courtroom exchangers and the painful recounting of alleged abuse, Jane also offered the jury a window into her own attempts to understand the perplexing and distressing dynamics of her relationship with Combs. She told jurors she believed Combs was polyamorous, a lifestyle choice she struggled with, particularly due to what she perceived as a profound imbalance in treatment. "What was hard for me was the imbalance in treatment," Jane explained, adding with a note of weariness, "I didn't sign up to date a man who was in a public relationship." Clearly frustrated by the fact that the majority of her time with Combs was allegedly dominated by prolonged sexual encounters involving other men, which Combs observed, Jane explained that she actively sought to understand his motivations. "I was trying to deep dive on all the reasons why they drew such pleasure watching their women with other men," she testified, revealing a desperate attempt to make sense of her situation. This personal research, she explained, led her to encounter the term cuck, which she described to the jury as a man who is in a relationship and is turned on by watching a woman have sex with another man. When defense attorney Garagos asked, "What did that word mean to you?" Jane's answer was direct and revealing of her conclusion at the time. "I was just like, this is spot on." While the defense might seize upon her research as an indication of a willingness to understand and perhaps even cater to Combs' alleged preferences, Jane also conveyed a deeply complicated emotional landscape. She admitted that there were parts of the group's sexual encounters she enjoyed and recalled moments when Combs expressed affection, saying he would say things like he never wanted me to leave and so many nice, loving things. These admissions painted a complex, often contradictory picture of a relationship allegedly riddled with manipulation and coercion, yet punctuated with moments that, for Jane, felt like genuine connection, further illustrating the difficult terrain survivors of alleged abuse often navigate. But that wasn't the whole story, as the alleged need for secrecy around these encounters became another focal point, raising serious questions. The alleged secrecy surrounding these hotel nights, as Jane termed them, and later encounters in private residences, became another crucial element under intense examination during the trial, particularly concerning the potential awareness or involvement of Sean Combs' extensive staff and business apparatus. The defense seemed acutely focused on establishing a clear perimeter around Combs himself, suggesting that his employees, those who manage his daily life and sprawling business interests, were kept deliberately unaware of the illicit and degrading activities Jane described. Defense attorney Tenny Garagos methodically peppered Jane with questions about the role of Combs' assistants, his security detail, and other members of his inner circle during their 3-year relationship. It was important that none of his employees knew about the entertainers from these nights, Garagos asked, specifically referring to the male escorts Combs allegedly hired. Right, Jane confirmed, her testimony underscoring the lengths to which Combs allegedly went to conceal these activities. She further testified that Combs eventually began hosting these alleged illicit gatherings in private residences instead of hotel rooms, a move seemingly designed to ensure even greater secrecy and control, far from prying eyes or potential witnesses. Even Combs' chief of staff, Christina Coram, a figure Jane described as Combs' right brain, and someone generally apprised of his myriad activities, was, according to Jane's testimony, intentionally kept out of the loop regarding the booking and payment of these escorts. Did Coram have any knowledge that escorts were joining the hotels? Garagos pressed. I don't think so, Jane answered thoughtfully. This concerted line of questioning from the defense is strategically vital. To secure a conviction against Combs on the serious charge of racketeering conspiracy, prosecutors generally need to prove that he relied on others, an organized enterprise, which could include his employees or business entities, to commit at least 2 related crimes. By attempting to demonstrate that Combs' staff were oblivious to these alleged personal transgressions, the defense aims to dismantle a key component of the prosecution's racketeering case, portraying these incidents, however disturbing, as isolated personal actions rather than part of a broader criminal operation. These courtroom revelations aren't happening in a vacuum. They're part of a larger, unfolding saga that has rocked the entertainment world to its core. These courtroom revelations, each more shocking than the last, are not unfolding in isolation. They are a dramatic focal point in a much larger, more turbulent storm that has engulfed Sean Diddy Combs over the past year. It's crucial to frame this carefully. Reports have surfaced from numerous credible media outlets detailing highly publicized federal raids on Combs' opulent properties in Los Angeles and Miami, an undeniable and significant escalation in the official scrutiny he faces. Beyond this specific trial, it has been widely reported that multiple other lawsuits alleging a horrifying range of serious sexual misconduct to trafficking have been filed against the music mogul by various individuals. These accusers, some of whom have also chosen to remain anonymous, paint a disturbing pattern of alleged behavior that some claim spans decades, hidden beneath a veneer of success and power. Speculation is naturally rife within public discourse and across social media platforms about the full, potential extent of his alleged activities, and crucially, who else might have been aware of or even complicit in these alleged actions. This trial, centered on Jane Doe's harrowing and detailed allegations, is therefore seen by many not just as an individual case seeking justice for one person, but as a potential watershed moment. It's viewed as a public reckoning for a figure who once seemed to bestride the entertainment world with an air of untouchability, a man whose influence was vast and whose image was meticulously cultivated. The transition from hushed whispers and persistent rumors to formal, damning charges and televised public testimony has been nothing short of seismic. With so much at stake, the world watches, wondering what the ultimate verdict will be on a man who once seemed impervious to consequence. With each passing day in the trial of Sean Diddy Combs, the chasm between his globally recognized public persona and the alleged private reality seems to widen into an abyss. The shocking allegations, ranging from the truly bizarre Michael Jordan self-comparison in the context of degrading illicit gatherings to the grave federal charges of trafficking for sexual exploitation and racketeering, paint an incredibly disturbing and complex picture. James' raw emotional testimony, frequently clashing with the defense's narrative of willing participation and shared affection, has laid bare a deeply unsettling saga of alleged manipulation, coercion, and profound control. The purported web of secrecy, meticulously spun to shield an empire and its leader from the consequences of these alleged dark proclivities, now faces relentless, methodical exposure under the harsh lights of the courtroom. This trial does more than just scrutinize the actions of one man, however powerful. It forces a harsh, uncomfortable glare on the seductive allure of fame, the immense power that comes with it, and the dark undercurrents that can fester beneath a carefully polished surface. As the proceedings continue to unfold with more testimony and evidence yet to come, the world watches, transfixed and holding its breath for answers that could redefine a legacy. Will the self-proclaimed Jordan of these alleged dark games ultimately face his final buzzer in a court of law? The verdict remains unwritten, but the profound and disturbing questions this case raises about power, consent, and celebrity will resonate long after the final judgment is rendered.